Today's topic is the mindset of success and how that 1% really view it. It's going to be a great session today, so I will pass this on to Chad and let him get going.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. I really appreciate it as always. Thank you for who you are for Orem Group and all your roles that you're managing, and you're managing of all the products that Orem has in the world of dental mastery and servicing our doctors. And for those of you who haven't met me, my name is Chad Gibson, as Dan said. I'm a member of the Orem Academy, and the Orem Academy is really designed to support our doctors and practice growth. We have a couple different streams that we focus on monthly and in person in our meet and greet sessions, as well as in the different speaker circuits, I guess you would say, that we do. So one stream is definitely the clinical stream, where we are always advancing clinical outcomes with our doctors. I'm not one of those people who help you with that. I'm not a dentist myself. I'm not a doctor myself. I am a leadership expert. So I'm here inside the Orem Academy to really talk about people, and to talk about communication, and to talk about running great teams, and to share some success principles with you as a small business owner. And my real passion is helping leaders, and most specifically business owners, on running great practices, running great businesses, enjoying the quality of their life, and not only being great at what they do as a profession, but also great at what they do and proud of the businesses they run. So I appreciate you being on. Most times, you probably find yourself here either as a practicing doctor or an associate, or one of the leadership team of your practice. So I really appreciate you taking, these 60 minutes out to learn about this topic and to develop yourself. One of the things I definitely know over time is that leadership, there is no top to the mountain. And it's one of those areas of life that I think, we can be very passionate about, because just like relationships in our personal lives, our relationships at work and with our patients are obviously sacred, and we can always deepen them. And today, as Daniel said, I do want to share with you 5 pillars of mindset of great leaders. And these 5 pillars are really taken from, I believe each will resonate with you in more ways than one. I'm sure that they will resonate both in your own experience of being a leader and being a business owner, or being a leader in your practice. And they'll also resonate with you with the great works that have been written over the years, whether it's religious teaching, or Think and Grow Rich, or the latest motivational kind of truths of the day. These 5 pillars are grounded in, what works in leadership. But sometimes as leaders, we may forget. And I think it's useful to be able to take a breath and reset ourselves from time to time on what really is the foundation of success in leadership. So with that said, let's move into the topic of the day. And by the way, at the end of the webinar, we'll leave time for questions and answers. So I know that we don't have all your faces up here right now, and I always like talking to real people. I know that you are here. I do see your names, and I again appreciate you being on. And we'll take whatever questions you may have at the end of the webinar. Also, we'll give you what you need to make sure you claim your CE credits. And I also have a download available for you that recaps the webinar as well. So I just invite you to kind of be here and think about your own leadership, and think about your own business as we review the topic. All right. So a quick overview. We're going to review the 5 pillars of mindset that all successful leaders share in common. And that's my assertion that, again, you'll find that these 5 pillars you'll see in yourself, and you'll definitely see in whoever you say are great leaders. We're going to look at some specific strategies throughout those 5 pillars, really for shifting your mindset and viewing yourself and your team in a new and powerful way. You could say that when we shift our view of life, or we shift our view of ourselves, or we shift our view of our business, that everything shifts with it. So that's why mindset is so important. Where we set our mind, it gives us literally what I see and I don't see. So, say a little bit more about that just as we begin. There's certain things that you see as a doctor that I don't see as a non-doctor or a non-practitioner. Obviously, in the world of dentistry, you'll see the mouth and you'll see the teeth and you'll see the structure and everything that your education and your expertise and your training over time has allowed you to identify with your area of expertise. So you see things I don't see. I see a nice smile or maybe not so nice smile, and that's about it, I guess. You will see the words I've picked up, like inclusion and the bite and, everything else that you understand, but that's because you're trained in the world of dentistry. And by virtue of that training and mindset, you actually see things that other people don't see. Leadership is no different. And really, I use that as an example because it's important. When we take on leadership as mastering something, just like you've mastered dentistry, and I'm sure part of mastery is to know that you've never reached the top. So it's continuing to expand our ability and our capacity to both practice dentistry, but also to practice leadership. And when we do that, we do see new actions to take. I promise you, by kind of pulling these 5 pillars towards you, your practice will look different tomorrow. The next conversation you have with your team will look different tomorrow. The next time you talk to your patients, it will look different. Well, what will look different? Well, likely you'll hear things that you didn't hear before, before trying this on, so to speak, before reminding yourself about these pillars. And the way you interact with the team, the way you go after things, the way that you think for yourself about what's possible for the business, for the economics of the business, my promise is will actually shift. So that's a big part of today. Also, we'll look at how to take new actions consistent with that expanded world-class view, just to underline what I mentioned, and techniques for expanding your business and people results by adapting the mindset of successful leaders. Okay, because again, if we can see the world the way that successful leaders see the world, then we have access to the kind of results that whoever we say are the most successful leaders have access to. That's the premise here. Okay, leadership is not something that I say you're born with. It is something that is developed and can be developed over time, just like most skills. So, as I said, just a quick introduction. I'm not going to go through all this, but my background again is working with both large companies and lots of small business owners, and also with the Orem Group for over 5 years now, both with the Orem's internal teams and as a member of the Orem Academy here. So I have a deep respect for what it takes to be a leader and a practice owner, and in your business also be a dentist, a professional, and be on your feet and chair side, and also have to run the business at the same time and manage people. It's a big deal. So thank you for being here. And I have had some experience in sharing this work over time. So mindset and leadership. I think one of the first things to talk about here is that leadership is required to fulfill new futures. So a lot of times, people think about leadership and you really don't have to expand your leadership at all. People don't have to do anything, quite frankly. And to be a business owner doesn't mean you need to be a leader. You can be a business owner and just be a great manager. And, a manager is somebody who manages things. And you can even manage people, do this and don't do that. And you could train people and you could manage the profit and loss, and you could manage your customer database, and you can manage if the phone is answered correctly. That's all more management, task orientated. And that's important. Management's important. Leadership is only required if you're up to a bigger future than you currently have. And having a bigger future is not necessarily better, except my experience of most business owners and entrepreneurs is that probably you have an innate desire for growth, because really we're either growing or atrophying. And so growth is natural for human beings, and growth is natural for business owners. So whether that just looks like optimizing your current practice, growing obviously your revenues, or growing the types of business channels that you're operating inside of, or growing your customer service, or growing your team, or adding perhaps other locations or other ways to scale. Leadership's required for those kind of new futures. See, it's only when I declare a new future and I start to see for myself as the business owner, as the leader of my team, I start to see that something else is possible that isn't here today. It's something that might be interesting, and it's interesting to you first as the leader, and you start to speculate it in your mind, and it's something you start to see, and it's a picture you start to paint, and then you can start to see it. See, leaders see a future before it's in reality, in this reality called bricks and mortar. But you know, there is a lot of science behind the reality you see in your mind is just as strong as the reality you see in front of you, and in fact, it precedes it. And that's what I am proposing here for you, is that leadership is required to fulfill new futures, but you would first need to be interested in a new future. And if you are interested in a new future, it creates a gap between how it is today and how that future is that you see is possible. Therefore, you need leadership. Now, you don't even have to be the leader. You could hire leaders to lead it, but often that loses some authenticity, and it's not as much fun for most people. And if you knew you could lead a new future, you'd probably rather be part of the game of it, because that's where the fun is. So the point is here, you don't have to lead. It's not required to run a great business. It just required, if there's something at stake called something that hasn't happened yet, that you're interested in having happen. I hope that makes sense. So that's leadership. And then, you know, where does the mindset come in? Well, mindset is the genesis of all great leadership. So you can see they reflect each other. They're kind of one side of the hand and the other is the other side of the hand. They arise together, because my mindset, as I said, is something that I start to see, and then it starts to require leadership. You see, that future gets created in my mind, and that is a set point that then I start to come from. And some futures we know for ourselves, we're so excited about, we can't help but share with others. Some futures are confronting. Most of the big ones are confronting because we don't exactly know how to make it happen, or we doubt that we can make it happen. But nevertheless, it creates the playing field, it creates the game, it creates the thing that we start to talk about and we start to plan for, and that we get up for, and then we start to see things that we didn't see before. We read new books, we hire new people to help us close the gap. We have new conversations with their team. We have new conversations with their family or our spouse saying, here, this is what's possible. This is what I think we could do. What do you think? Okay, so now we're going to review the 5 pillars that support the mindset and leadership of the great leaders. So success mindset, number 1, we're going to say it's vision. If you look at it, what's common between all leaders? Well, going back to what I've already started with, I'm sure you would agree that leaders have a vision, and because what are we leading without a vision? There's nothing to lead. So I need a vision to lead. So, you know, really questions you can ask yourself. What are you passionate about contributing to the world? Now, I'm clear I'm talking to healthcare experts, so I would imagine that you know what got you here was a great dedication already and passion about healthcare and helping people and the well-being of people, and obviously specifically in the world of healthcare with dentistry. So that may be something you're passionate about, but what else are you passionate about beyond that? Why did you start your practice? Why do you lead the team? You could come up with looking at how do you want to lead people as customer service? How do you want people to think about your practice? What are you passionate that people experience walking out of your 4 doors? Like that, okay? So these are questions for yourself. What is it you love doing? What do you see as possible for the business? So as you look into the future, where could you expand? What have you thought about in the past, but maybe gave up on or set to the side because you're too busy, or you didn't think you had the resources or the people or the money or the acumen to grow? But what is it that you see as possible for the business? What do you want to bring into existence for others? So this could be more of an experience that you want to give, that your practice is known for. Or it could be just into the services that you provide and the world-class service that you leave people with. What is it that here we are in service of that is bigger than you? So great leaders, if you think about them, they usually have some cause or some mission or some big problem that is bigger than themselves. And one definition of leadership is that leaders grow into what is demanded of them by the future they commit to. So in other words, the commitment I give to the future shapes my leadership. See, most of us look at our current circumstances and look at ourselves in the mirror and say, okay, well, I'm not a very good communicator, or I'm not very good with people, or I am good with all that, but I'm not good with numbers, or maybe I'm not good at thinking big, or whatever we tell ourselves. By the way, we know that most of those are all stories. They're not really true. They're probably just things that somebody said when we were 6 years old that we continue to repeat, or we took on as some kind of flaw we thought, or limitation we have, which virtually doesn't exist really. And that's kind of the fun of leadership and taking on a bigger future, is we start to bump up against the barriers or self-imposed barriers that we really put on ourselves. And that future that we're committed to has us actually move beyond those things. You see, because my life now, you could say my life, because great leaders are really invested, aren't they? They are fully in. There is no, I do this at work and then I go home. It is like, who I am in life is this. I'm in service of this future, my business being this way, my patients being this way, my team being this way, the community I operate being this way. You know, great leaders, the ones we really think about, take on things that actually impact the world, right? So the world can be this way. And my business can actually be in service of this in the world. You know, if we can do this in our area of the business and we can impact our community in this way, well, that's a microcosm of how other people could interact in society. And is it the right way? I don't know, but it's something that we care about, and it's something that we say makes a difference. So all of that kind of thinking starts to have me get out of the way. Whatever stories I have about myself from the past that I'm not this or that, I can't hold on to if I'm really committed to fulfilling the future. So I start to naturally shed some of the limitations perhaps that I self-imposed on myself to actually be somebody who now steps up in a new way, who says new things, who gets involved in a new way, and literally takes a stand for something that hasn't happened yet, but something that I can see that's possible. So it's the commitment shapes who we are as a leader, which is very powerful to get. My commitment and my accountability, and I grow into it as a leader. Okay. Where do you have a nonstop ambition to fulfill a future? So, you know, what's pulling at you, what's tugging at you? What is it that keeps you up at night? That if you had the time, if you had the resources, you would really be interested in fulfilling. And then finally here, I just say inside the vision, where there is no vision, leadership is not required. So to repeat that, no one needs to have a vision. It just, leadership goes hand in hand with vision. And when there is a big vision, somebody's got to lead it. Somebody's got to walk first. Somebody's got to invite others to participate. Somebody's got to articulate it and start to take the risk and have the courage to say, we're going this way and I'm inviting you to come along, because this is why I think it's important. And then you can engage others in that inquiry for why it might be important for them. All right, so that's number one, vision. All great leaders have in common a big vision. They have some kind of vision that they're at work on. Okay, number two is expectations. So this sometimes can maybe go unseen. However, in my experience, the great leaders all expect great things to happen, okay? And they also expect certain things to happen in a certain kind of quality, and they expect good things to come their way, and they expect their goals to manifest, and they don't expect it all to be easy, but they do expect things to go the way that they see them to go. It may not be exactly what they see now, but they are not expecting defeat. They are expecting victory. So what does that look like? Well, I would be somebody who have clear expectations for myself. So I have clear expectations for my future. I'm living life by design. I am clear about my goals. I'm clear about the business goals, and I'm clear about who I need to be to fulfill them. For my conduct, you know, how I show up. Again, I know I'm talking to professional people here who obviously show up every day And so this is not a new concept for you. However, just the way that you show up as a medical professional, you can show up as a leadership professional. You can show up as the future is serious for the business. The future, why is it serious? Because you say so. And leaders who are really up to leading change and making something happen, if you look in your experience, they know what they're up to. There is no doubt about it. Just like you doing a procedure that's important in a patient's mouth, there would be no doubt about who you are being in that moment. You would be being clear, you'd be being professional, be being precise. Leading a future as a leader has the same kind of quality to it. You know when somebody's up to something and they're serious about it and they're seriously expecting something good to happen from it. You get that, okay? So no different with leadership. Do you have clear expectations for your communication? Are you clear in your communication? Are you clear about communicating the future? And also for your standards and values. All of this, by the way, is a big part of running a great culture in a practice. We know that employees love consistency. They love to have clarity in their roles. They love to have accountability. They want to know that there's going to be clear communication when standards are not met and that there's somebody leading the business. So this helps in all areas. And what is it that you expect from yourself and therefore can stand for from others? So a big part of leadership is also whatever it is that I'm willing to stand for myself. If I stand for quality, if I stand for customer service, one of the things I know when I coach teams is I'm absolutely a maniac about customer service. And if any team really is okay with any customer not being completely satisfied with whatever our product and service is, it's not okay by me. And it's a stand I take. So it's not like a position I take, like I make you wrong if a company's not that way, but I find different ways to express myself as a leader and a coach to help people see that we're in business for that very person who walked through the door. And no matter what they saw, even if they're that kind of customer or that kind of patient, yeah, we all know that kind of patient. We all have different versions of that kind of patient, but what is it we're missing in how we're interacting with that kind of patient, where still we could be and provide the kind of service that we would be proud of. This is not to say, again, that we're going to choose to do business with all kinds of customers, but then we should change our business model slightly and be clear about that as well. The point here is that I'm just sharing as one example. I have a very high expectation of customer service. Not every business does, and we know the ones that don't. So I'm not saying that needs to be your standard, but you pick your standards and your expectations. You see, if I hold myself to account for high customer service, then I can definitely hold my staff to it. So if I'm going to walk the talk with how we interact with patients as an example, then I will darn well expect everyone on my team to at least meet that standard and hopefully surpass it. And that becomes the floor that we all stand on, right? So what is that for you? And there's different expressions of it. And then in expectations, simply said here, one's mindset is populated by what they expect. So my expectations play a big part in how the world shows up for me and where my mind is set. The mindset is really the content of one's mindset is made up by a lot of expectations. Sometimes we have hidden expectations, or we expect to get burned, or we expect relationships won't work out, or it's good to have associate members. It's not good to have associate members. I don't know. We make up a lot around it. And so inspecting what we expect is an important part of leadership. Both to see if the expectations you have from the past are serving you still currently, or are there new expectations you can make that will start attracting some new circumstances your way. All right, so great leaders, the top 1%, you could say, have big vision. They also are very clear in their expectations, both for their self for success and what they demand of others for success. All right, number 3. Discipline. See, I told you, you would, all these would be like, yeah, what's the big deal? Discipline, of course. And again, I know I'm talking to a very skilled group in discipline because you wouldn't be where you are without discipline. But let's again apply it to specifically leadership and the leaders that we say are, the best in the world. So these are some questions, discipline and leadership has this kind of flavor to it. Will you do whatever it takes to succeed? I think it's very important. Often with leadership, so much comes at us, especially I'm sure as a practice owner, again, managing all the different areas of the business you manage, or as a team leader, both the patients and the business and the legal and the banking and the finance and the purchasing and, the staffing and everything else. And then your family on top of it. It's sometimes we get lost in where there is to be focused. So discipline can help us stay focused as well, because we need to ask ourselves some questions. What is it that we really need to focus on to succeed? What is the 80% in this business that actually produces the majority of the results, so to speak? So will you do whatever it takes to succeed? And that question has you actually start to pierce out what is the seeds to success. Will you keep working even if nothing is working? I'm sure as you went through medical school that there were many times where you had you maybe doubted yourself, or you were going through the valley of the shadow of death, so to speak, and things weren't working out perhaps the way that you thought they would work out, but you kept working at it and you worked yourself out of it. Leadership's the same way. We've got to take risks. We've got to get our team together. Sometimes we make mistakes. Sometimes we say things that don't work. But are you willing to keep working even when it's not working or appears not to be working? Will you have the fortitude to stick with the plan when no one else will? This is such a big deal for leadership in business. Often we will get even a simple plan, which often the best plans are simple plans forward. We have a new marketing program. We have a new product we're launching. We have a social media campaign. We have a different way to manage customers. We have a new CRM. We have a new way to answer the phone. I don't know. There's new training on some product. And we've got a clear plan. However, the majority of people who stick with a plan as a team is very slim. Usually it turns out to be some version of how we do it, not how it was actually designed to be done. Therefore, we lose some effectiveness and consistency. So when people stop working the plan as you expected, will you have the fortitude? That looks like, I'm not going to drive home today yet. I'm going to take 15 minutes and do a team huddle, because I've got to address that we're not working the plan as designed. And if I walk over this, it's just going to be more of a mess tomorrow and next week and next month, and virtually it won't work. So great leaders manage the details, and they have the fortitude to stick with it, because they're not willing to pay the price of what it is not to address it as it happens in real time. Will you sacrifice whatever is needed to win the game? So we all know what that looks like when something's really at stake. Sometimes we've got to make prioritization priorities, and whatever that looks like for you. Does the team know that you're not backing down in this area of the vision? Will you do what you need to do to grow into the leader the future needs you to be? This points back a little bit to what I pointed at the beginning of the webinar, which is, in my opinion, really an inspiring way to view leadership, because it's less about you and what you have to learn than how big a future are you willing to declare, and then know that you can reinvent yourself naturally to say what you need to say, to be who you need to be with your own unique expression, your own way of doing things. You don't have to model somebody else. You'll be yourself when you give your word to a bigger future and you honor your word. I have to look in the mirror and deal with myself and say, I got to have a new conversation, or I've got to build a new skill set, but I can do it. And then that's how we develop as leaders. My view is that great leaders get developed because of the size of the commitment they took on, not because, again, they were born a natural leader, or because they became a great leader and then looked for a future to lead. It was usually the future they were leading that shaped who they were. I hope that's communicating. And can you stay disciplined even with no recognition or reward? So again, great leaders are not out for the pats on the back. No one's going to give it to us. They may come, they may not come, but that's not why we're playing the game. We're playing the game because we're going to win the game. And it's not the recognition or reward that we're going after. All right. So that's number 3. Okay. Number 3 of 5. So the fourth pillar of the success mindset is authenticity. So let's look at authenticity here from a specifically a leadership mindset, which is, are you committed to leading with authenticity and giving up the spin? So I don't know about you and where you are in your leadership journey. For a lot of young leaders, and then for seasoned leaders, often we think we have to be a certain way at work and then a certain way at home, or we think we have to be a certain way for our staff, how they want us to be for them. Basically, in leadership, there's a lot of looking good and avoiding looking bad. Some version of what do they think of me, and I want to be thought well of. So who do I need to be, or how do I need to, virtually pretend to manage something so that they won't quit, or so that they will quit, or so that they'll like me, or some version of that. Again, I think as we progress as leaders, we learn to shed layer after layer after layer of inauthenticity. And again, probably that's just an ongoing introspection as a leader. Where are we being authentic and where are we being inauthentic? But I invite you just to know that the great leaders we think of, when you're in their presence, you're pretty much just in the presence of a person up to something authentically. There's no spin. There's no other agenda. There's nothing else going on. They're not trying to get someplace or get you someplace. They're not worried about themselves. Their attention is not on them. Their attention is on the goal, on the future, and on you and on the team. And can we coalesce to make this thing happen together, and what's needed and what's missing and what's working and what's not working. And they're not worried about their ego. They're not worried about getting their feelings hurt. They're not worried about personalities. They're not worried about any of that. They're just worried about winning whatever the game was that we said was important around here. And that's when we're in the presence of an authentic leader. So check that out for yourself. Do others see you as trustworthy, straight in your communication, and open? So again, I think authenticity, we're left in the presence of not even asking, is this trustworthy or not? We want to follow somebody. We may not agree with them, but we know that they care about what they're communicating and what they're up to. And they're not, they're not trying to get somewhere with us. They're just building towards a goal and inviting us to participate. So that opens up straight communication. Again, it's not a strategy. I don't have to learn to be a great communicator to be authentic. I'm just being authentic. And for some leaders, that looks like very brash and straight because that's maybe the way you are. And for other leaders, maybe it's a different approach. But in my experience too, and how I coach business owners, is to be exactly how you are authentically. That's what people want. Okay. Do people know you will say what needs to be said while treating others well? So again, this goes back to a little bit about that urgency as well, where we're dealing with things quickly and we're cutting to the chase. We're not talking around issues. We're being straight with people. We say what needs to be said. We build a culture that way. And yes, we treat others well, but we also count on other people to be responsible for their own reactions to us. So you should never feel like you need to tiptoe around your team, walk on eggshells, be worried about people's emotional, reactions. And that's not to say we don't have compassion. That's why I have there, well, we still treat people well. And obviously, whatever that is for your culture, we treat people with respect and care and love and friendship and everything that may be required. But high performance requires that we talk straight and we don't have time to beat around the bush. And can they do the same with you? Or are they talking to somebody who's an emotional kind of roller coaster and they have to pick the right time to give you feedback? So it's always starting with ourselves. So am I somebody who people can say what needs to be said to me? And do I treat other people well through it? Okay, very important in obviously the top leaders. And do you have the experience of fully giving yourself and being who you really are in all areas of your life? So again, authenticity. Where we began. It's not my work life. It's not then my personal life. What about the possibility that where you are, and who people get is who you are. and you don't have to wear a different hat in different places. And that's not to say, obviously, you have a different role as a parent or as a spouse than you do as perhaps a boss or the doctor. But you do what's appropriate while still experiencing complete authenticity. Okay, so that brings us to number 5, everyone. Success mindset, number 5 for the top leaders, and it is accountability. Almost anything that I share about in leadership, accountability seems to be the foundational element. And if we only had one success mindset, it would be accountability, right? So let's look a little bit about this thing that everyone talks about. And really for myself, when I coach teams, I'm always asking everyone on the team, are you willing to take 100% responsibility for your team? So obviously this includes your own actions and your own leadership, but 100% responsibility. So to say a couple of things about this, by responsibility, I'm not talking about blame or credit or shame. I'm not talking about whose fault it is, not that kind of responsibility. Accountability, when it really works, and when we're in the presence of great leaders, they don't get into conversations about excuses and justifications and who did this and it wasn't me and it was him and all that. It wastes time and it doesn't provide any leadership. 100% responsibility looks like I own it all. Especially if you're the practice owner or you're the leader of the team, you're definitely accountable for the team. So you would take responsibility. However, every person on the team can take 100% responsibility for the team working, for customer service happening, for the patient outcomes being delivered, for obviously safety and well-being of every person who walks through your practice. We're all accountable, but it doesn't mean we're all accountable like I'm not accountable. No, I'm accountable. And when every person on the team can look in the mirror and say, I'm 100% accountable for the success of our practice working, then you've got a high performance team. And it takes a leader to share that kind of mindset. And it takes a leader who's authentically engaged in being 100% accountable for the success of the group and not making excuses. So that's an accountability culture and definitely a success mindset. So are you attentive to the words that fall out of your mouth? For example, no excuse language. The most successful leaders have some room to listen to excuses. So you may look at something that went wrong in the business and say, okay, why did that happen? And then somebody says, well, that happened because this was missed. And then somebody missed that on the form and then the insurance thing there. And then we didn't call back over there. Okay. So a great leader will listen just enough because they're listening for the facts of the situation. They don't want the drama. They don't want the story. And they have compassion for the drama and story because we are humans. So people like to add some color to things, but your team can get better and better when you're listening as a leader for what are the facts, what actually happened, not our story or drama about what happened. Okay. And good. And then what's the corrective action for next time so that never happens again, because this had a major consequence on that patient or that customer or on us or on the profit of the business or whatever it may be. And the more that you can do that as a leader, the less you're going to hear people's excuses or blame game or finger pointing. And definitely, though, you want to check out as a leader, do you blame people? Do you use excuse language? Are you looking for whose fault it was? I would invite you to step out of that world and start to look, okay, I'm 100% accountable for this happening, even though you could have been on vacation for a week. You're still 100% accountable because the team was set up under your watch, right? And so, okay, you missed something in your communication to them. You might have said it 5 times very clearly in your mind, but they didn't hear it that way. Or there's something incomplete in some way that the business is occurring to them that even if you said it clearly, they didn't listen to you. They still did it the way they always did it. That's still on you. Why? Because you say so. But if you stop saying so, you'll look to, well, it's just them. They're the problem. And it doesn't matter if you fire them or hire them. With that attitude, you'll always find that with the next person. You may have experienced that. So this is a big deal with great 1% leaders. Do you trust yourself to find the answers and rally the team through any crisis? And that's again, I would have to say, I own the whole deal. I know this is not going to be easy, but I will be accountable for the good times and the bad, and we will build this together and we will find the answers together. And I'll be there when the team needs me to bring that context. And can you listen to others, have space for their excuses, and demand results anyway? So this is a skill and one to practice. Listening, have space for excuses because we're human, and I will have excuses sometimes as well, but we're not going to get bought off by the excuses. And we're still going to hold ourselves to account and say, but what are we really committed to around here? Don't forget the vision. Don't forget our expectations. Don't forget our standards. Don't forget what we expect for every customer, for every patient that walks out that door. And so we must do better. We demand that we do better for ourselves, and we will do better right away now. This is not something we are going to work on for months and have 5 other people have that same experience. So again, that's what it might sound like as a pillar of accountability. All right, team. So I'm going to start to wrap up here, and then we'll see if there's any questions, Dan. And those are the 5 pillars. So just to review, mindset pillars. The 1% have a big vision. I want to repeat, a big vision doesn't mean open 10 more practices, unless that's something that you're really committed to. It doesn't mean open another practice at all. It could just mean elevate what you're already doing exceptionally well to the next level. But that's the vision. By the end of this year, we will double this area of experience, or we will market into this new realm, or we will improve our customer service score by 10%, or whatever it is you already measure. So a vision creates a gap between how it is today and how it is tomorrow. And it's a desirable gap that requires then leadership to fill. And then from that, there's expectations, and they go hand in hand. So what are the expectations you have? I invite you to check in with your expectations. I'm a firm believer that thoughts do create the world. Thoughts become things. Expectations are thoughts. They're very powerful thoughts. Does your team expect to give great customer service? Does your team expect that patients are going to be on time? I don't know. Do you expect that you're going to run on time in your practice? Do you expect that you can, or is your expectation that you're always running behind? Just as an example, start to inspect some of these filters and some of these perhaps blind spots or language that's in the background, and see if you can get it out in the foreground and see, is it empowering? Because often we have self-fulfilling prophecies in business that we don't even know about, because the guy down the block may have a very different view, and they may have different results. And you have to be interested in why that is. And it may just be the language that we have, and it starts with their expectations. Okay. And then third, discipline. So whatever we set as the vision and expectations, are we a team who's going to follow through? Will we execute? And will we know that it's not easy all the time, but we'll stay disciplined with the priorities, and we'll reconvene, we'll get together, and we'll make sure we talk and sort through what are the next actions to take and what are the priorities in our business, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually, to make this vision happen. Authenticity. Can your team count on you? This is your game first. Do you experience yourself being authentic with the team? Can you share with them what you're dealing with in a professional manner that is from the heart, that's real? Or do you have some kind of spin where you're holding back, or there's something that you experience kind of a distance between you and others? That's probably something there to examine and try to take the risk of what authenticity could look like. It may take some courage to have new conversations or to ask some questions, but that would actually be a demonstration of being authentic in those conversations. And then accountability. Look, are we going to own it all or not? And it's always an individual game. Accountability is one of those things we always want other people to be accountable for things, because our business would be better if everyone was accountable. But often when you're looking for everyone to be accountable, you find no one accountable. So really it comes down to just the person in the mirror. Can you first take the stand? I'm 100% accountable for everything working as a possibility, as a place to come from, because from that view, I'm never going to have a back door. I'm never going to have my own excuses. I'm never going to justify it in my head or blame somebody else. I'm not going there. It's a waste of time. I will ask different questions because I'm accountable to find out really what's not working or what didn't work or what did I miss or what do we need to put in place as a team. But it's a whole different mindset. Okay. And it literally changes your view of the business and how you talk to people. So I hope that that was useful and reiterated and probably reinforced a lot of what you've already experienced as success, obviously in other areas and probably in your own leadership as well. And left you with perhaps ability to reset some of the things that you know work. So some key takeaways, we will have a leader success mindset journal, which Tanya will send out to everyone who's on the call, and we'll get that out to you by tomorrow. That's we'll recap the 5 pillars and is more of a workshop for you to take some notes on. Sorry, a workbook to take some notes on for yourself. I recommend you schedule 30 minutes to do that and to reset your mindset for success, customized for your business. Allow that new context from working through that questionnaire to shape your actions. This is one of those things I'd invite you not to work too hard on, but when you answer those questions in that journal and think about them, again, they'll naturally start to shape your verbiage and how you interact with the team and probably what you step into and maybe what you stop stepping into. You may become less reactive in some situations because you just like, I'm not going there with that, because that's kind of the game we play with, the blame game or something. And I'm just not interested in engaging in that it's not a productive conversation, you may notice, as an example. And then practice nurturing and expanding what you see as possible from your vision and from your expectations. Nurturing it, well, think about it more, draw it out, speak with others about it where appropriate, and expand what you see with others. And notice how it starts to show up in reality. Notice it once you get it out of your head and you start to move it into the reality of your business, how quickly it can actually start to impact reality. So we'll just leave with where we started, which is leadership is required to fulfill new futures, and mindset is the genesis of all great leadership. So trust your intuition, trust your vision, and where you know there's expansion possible, leadership probably could be required to fulfill that new future. And you've got everything you need to do it. So with that said, Dan, I will just see here. That's our last one. And I'll just say for everyone on, if you find this kind of leadership training useful, I invite you to scan here. I do have a series of leadership videos, which will just be free for you if you sign up for those. And they'll come to you, I believe, weekly. And they talk more about communication and team building and all that good stuff that we know works in business. So I'm happy to take any questions, Dan, if there's anything specific, and we'll get on our way.
Well, thanks, Chad. That was excellent. I really like how all 5 of those pillars may be taken separately, but really they combine to really hold up the roof of that vision and the future that people are looking to really get at. Like I said, like Chad said, we'll open it up to Q&A. Feel free to put that into the chat there. And while we're waiting for that, what I might do is remind everyone that at the end of the webinar, we'll put up a QR code where it leads you to a quick survey. And after that, you can get your CE points, and they'll be sent out either tomorrow or the day after there. I don't see too much coming in right now. So maybe what I might do is quickly share my screen.
I can stop sharing this one. Does that work?
Yeah, that should work.
There you Perfect.
Go. All right, and can everyone see that there, the QR code?
Yep, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So we will leave that on for a little bit. And I'll also put up a QR code that shows the rest of the Orem Academy events that will be coming up, and you can feel free to scan that one there and see what other webinars are coming up. We have one for prep design, and we also have a few more with Chad future coming up as well.
Yeah, I'm back monthly with the leadership topic. And I know we have a lot of other great clinical streams as always, especially on latest on AI and innovation and some new products, right, Daniel, that Orum's featuring.
No, for sure. All right, so we do have a couple of questions coming in here. One is, in the role of an associate dentist, any suggestion to motivate an assistant to work hard?
Sure. In the role of it, so you're an associate dentist and you want your assistant to work hard. Well, I would say, so I'll just say motivation. I have a lot to say around the motivation topic. I'm not a big fan of motivation because I don't think motivation works at all. But I know we all use that word and I understand what you want. But I would offer that give up motivation. See, motivation is tough because I always coach when I'm coaching teams of people or businesses, like I get the whole team together and I'll tell the staff, I'll say, don't look to your leader. So in this case, don't look to the associate dentist here. Don't look to the doctor to motivate you. How many of you want to be motivated at work? They'll all put up their hand. I want to be motivated. Okay, stop wanting to be motivated. Motivation doesn't work because if he or she's not here to motivate you, what happens? Well, then, I don't know what happens. You're giving away your power. So real power is, again, back to accountability. If you want people to be motivated, can you be counted on to fulfill the vision, even though that doctor's not here, as an example, right? So to answer your question, though, I would have a conversation with them, and I would start to share around what the vision that you have for the practice. When you say motivated and you want them to work hard, what specifically does that look like? And there must be something that they're not doing that you wish they were doing that you want to motivate them with. So have a straight conversation around, as an example, one of our visions around here is obviously chair time productivity. And we want to make sure both for the patient and for ourselves and for the economy of scale and everything else that's important. And you may have to explain a little bit more of the why behind what it is you're asking them to do and say, this is how it all connects. So, I wanted to have this conversation with you so that and ask you, can I count on you to help me inside the vision of the clinic in this specific area? Because I think we can improve in general in these 3 areas. What do you think about that? And then shut up and let them talk, and then get their input on it and have a conversation between 2 people being authentic, engaged in the future with clear expectations and clear accountability. And what did I miss in the last pillar? I missed one in there, but you get the point. I'd basically sit down and start to talk and be straight. And if it's somebody that you're really committed to developing in the practice, just, let them know that, and then get to work looking together at what could be improved. And maybe they have some feedback for you too. I hope that helped. Don't worry about motivating them. Don't worry about motivating them. And you can let them know I'm not here to motivate you unless you are, but just say, I just want to work with you and be great. And here's some things though I think we could close the gap on. What do you think?
We also have a nice comment for you, Chad. It says, thank you for the reminder of complete accountability and authenticity as a leader. I needed to hear that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And one thing that I can say as well, we've instituted a lot of these teachings from Chad into the Orum group here, and that 100% accountability on every single member of the team, it really goes a long way in making sure that everyone knows what their role is and is performing that role to everything that they possibly can. It's created some great things here, and I know it'll cause some great changes in your office as well.
Good to hear, Daniel. Thank you. And just want to thank everyone for being on. We really appreciate you and your time. I know on behalf of the Orem Academy, we want to keep bringing you lots of value. So if this is valuable, good. If there's anything else that you're interested in learning about that we can bring from leadership or from the clinical world, please make sure that we know about it. And we'll make sure to include it.
If that is everything, we've got about 3 minutes to spare, so took care of everyone's time, and we'd like to thank everyone for joining us and look forward to seeing you all again on the next webinar.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dan. Thanks,
Thank
Tanya.
you.